How's it, everyone? This video expedition will examine the U.S. Army Air Corps' 100th Heavy Bombardment Group's missions, losses, and combat actions during the first 2 episodes of Masters of the Air, following the 10-part series on Apple TV+. In 1942, the unit was formed consisting of 36 B-17 Flying Fortresses, each capable of carrying 8,000 pounds of bomb ordnance payload, while also being equipped with 13 50 caliber 12.7 millimeter defensive machine guns. The aircraft had a top speed of 317 miles per hour and an operational range of 2,000 miles while carrying a full capacity bomb load. The crew complement of 10 consisted of the pilot commander, lieutenant co-pilot, flight engineer, navigator, bombardier, radio operator, 2 door gunners, ball turret gunner, and a tail gunner. The bomb group consisted of 4 squadrons with 9 bombers each, the 349th, 350th, 351st, and 418th, each with a formation commander and executive flight officer responsible for all 36 aircraft. 5 of these B-17s were specialized observational pathfinders flying at high altitudes in advance of the formation to mark the target area to guide the following navigators to the mission objective area of operation, or the IP initial point, to release their bomb loads. This breakdown will analyze the tactics and every aspect of the bombing raids, including B-17s lost in action, those damaged, the crew casualties, and that of the Luftwaffe's opposing aircraft. 360 U.S. Army Corps airmen had spent the last 18 months receiving extensive training in the Midwest region of the United States, and by early 1943 were preparing to cross the Atlantic to join the 8th Air Force in its bombing campaign over German-occupied Europe. In May 1943, a Pathfinder B-17 of the 418th Squadron detached in advance of the air group over to England, joining the 389th Heavy Bomber Group with the observation crew led by the group's executive flight officer. On May 21, 1943, during a raid over Wilhelmshaven, Germany, the forward-deployed fortress was pounced upon by 4 German Me-109 interceptors. These were the Luftwaffe's most widely produced, fast and nimble frontline fighter. Armed with 2 13mm machine guns and a single heavy 20mm nose cannon made the 109s deadly to Allied air crews. Major Bucky was able to save the stricken B-17 from an engine fire through a dive, safely lumbering the damaged bird back across the English Channel to a RAF British airfield, making this the first B-17 listed as out of action for heavy repairs for the group's first bomber to see combat. However, a minor victory achieved when the crew managed to damage a 109 from one of the defense guns that was an extremely difficult and rare occurrence that was overshadowed by a severely injured bombardier and other wounded crew members. Depending on the severity of a damaged and often shredded B-17, the planes were either cannibalized for parts or would undergo extensive repairs by the maintenance teams to cycle back into rotation these valuable airframe assets. In spring 1943, the group's 35 bombers and 350 crew crossed the transatlantic gap, landing in Greenwich, Greenland to refuel and rest following the long and turbulent 12-hour flight from the United States. On June 8th, the group arrived at East Anglia, England's RAF Thorpe Abbotts Airfield for their permanent base of operations, joining the 8th Army Air Force in the European theater. During the Greenland transit, a B-17 experiencing navigation and electrical issues strayed off course over the coast of occupied France, where they were greeted by a barrage of German anti-aircraft fire. Finally reaching their intended destination, the crew was forced to perform a belly landing, rendering a second fortress as damaged and taken out of flight status to undergo weeks of extensive repairs. Before a combat mission was ever flown, the 100th was already down 2 bombers. June 25, 1943, in the early dawn hours, 19 B-17s from the 100th joined a combined Airwing of 78 heavy bombers for a raid on the Bremen U-boat pens, threatening Allied convoys located on the Weser River inland from the Baltic coast of northwest Germany. 6 bombers of 349 Squadron, 7 from the 350th, and 6 351st Superfortresses comprised the rear echelon of the combined bomber wing formation. En route, mechanical engine problems caused a fortress from the 349th element to turn around near the coast, returning to base across the English Channel. Overcast weather combined with low cloud cover caused poor visibility as the 77 bombers struggled to maintain tight formation, nearly colliding at times as they came within range of the radar-assisted coastal defense batteries, adding to the element's increased difficulty of maintaining their defensive flight box formations. As heavy 88 and 105 artillery pepper the squadrons, slicing large holes through their airframes. With zero tracking through the Norden bomb sight crosshairs, the lead plane's bombardier decides to scrub the mission. At this early stage of the campaigns, 8th Air Force's Bomber Command was dedicated to striking precision military or industrial targets in an attempt to avoid civilian casualties, unlike the Royal Air Force doctrine of indiscriminate aerial night bombing over German industrial targets and population centers. Now, all the B-17s had to turn around heading back towards the Baltic Strait, still burdened by the bomb loads, slowing the lumbering planes as they again went through the thick walls of Flax, eagerly awaiting to jettison their bombs as they crossed into the sea. The only thing worse than the exploding aerial shrapnel barrages is when they abruptly stop, signaling the new calm before the even greater storm of fast-approaching German fighters. Amidst canceling the mission and maneuvering through the thick clouds and anti-aircraft fire, the 5 remaining 349th bombers strayed from the main formation. A deadly flight of 7 FW-190s quickly singles out and zeroes in on this isolated group of B-17s with lightning efficiency. The Focke-Wulf 190s, also known as Butcherbirds, are the newest Luftwaffe series of fighters, considered the most advanced and combat-capable design in 1943. Bristling with 4 heavy wing-mounted 20mm cannons and 2 rapid 13mm nose machine guns made them purpose-built bomber slayers. In a matter of seconds, hundreds of high-explosive shells ripped through the first bomber, reducing it to a tumbling fireball engulfed by the volatile payload. In under 2 minutes, 2 more B-17s suffer the same fate as the 190s form the repetitive strikes resembling streaks of multi-directional lightning blasts. 3 bombers and 30 crew are instantly erased from the sky as the nearest formation of B-17s watch in horror as a 4th bomber nearly suffers the same fate with multiple cannon strikes before, as quickly as the attack began, it ended, as the German fighters peeled away to avoid the perimeter range of Allied air cover, as the Luftwaffe pilots preferred not to slug it out with P-47s. Following almost 2 years of the Army Air Corps' outdated doctrine instilling that the bomber will always get through, the 100th's first combat mission was a baptism of fire and destruction, illustrating that by even 1943, the 8th Army Air Force, especially the top brass, still had a lot to learn. For what appeared to be increasingly tactical futility to the American bomber crews, strategically in the overall European theater, the 8th Air Force was deterring nearly half of German fighter strength away from the Soviets' Eastern Front to deal with the hundreds of U.S. bombers increasingly threatening German-occupied Western Europe that otherwise would be allocated against the Red Army on the meat grinder of the Eastern Front. Following one mission after the first 2 weeks of the 100th Bomber Group being in theater, 4 of the Flying Fortresses sustained significant damage, with 2 airframes being scrapped for salvage and 2 more still down undergoing extensive repairs. Another B-17 was destroyed in a training maneuver with the entire crew lost, raising the casualty rate to 4 planes destroyed, totaling 6 being scratched from the group and 2 more unavailable for flight operations, placing the total strength at 27 active aircraft. Out of the initial 350 airmen, 40 have been listed as KIA and 26 wounded, equaling an overall casualty total at an alarming 20% loss rate. Only 2 replacement fortresses are scheduled to arrive in the coming week due to every 8th Air Force bomber group facing similar shortcomings during the early summer months of 1943. Following a much-needed duty rotation, on July 18th, the 100th was assigned its next raid over German-occupied Norway, targeting the U-boat bunker pins at Trondheim. 2 squadrons of 6, totaling 12 bombers from the 100th, will lead the strike formation of 24 fortresses, rendezvousing en route with the 95th Group's additional 12 B-17s, increasing the total bomber strength to 36 aircraft, carrying 288,000 pounds of ordnance for the combined raid. Navigating through clear skies en route to the Norwegian coast, the bomb wing encounters thick to moderate flak artillery compared to that of the heavily fortified Rhineland region some 3 weeks prior. Pressing on through the anti-aircraft barrages, the 2 wing elements link up, guided towards in advance by the Pathfinder markers. All 36 bombers saturate the U-boat pins with the high explosive salvos, inflicting significant and observed damage, with numerous direct hits guided through the Norton bomb sites. Thicker flak over the IP area knocks out a B-17's engine that cascades into a dual prop failure. The flight leader elects to slow the wing formation to escort the stricken bomber back to Scotland. 3 Ju-88 night fighter bombers make an attack run on the tight B-17 formations. These twin-engine German fighters have been relegated to anti-shipping coastal defense and night operations against British bombers due to the lower max speed and vulnerability to single-engine fighters earlier in the war. The bombers' defensive fire scored a probable kill on one of the Junkers, causing the other 2 88s to shadow the bomber formations, waiting to pick off any stragglers before turning around back to Norway. The combined bomber wing reaches the safety of northern Scotland's secured airspace, and the damaged fortress executes a rough but successful emergency landing in a Highlander field, causing minor damage to a farm. Following both bombing raids over a 30-day period, in late July of 1943, the 100th Heavy Bomber Group has 27 operational aircraft available for combat duty, with 2 new B-17s soon to arrive from the States and 2 more damaged planes nearly repaired. The group's strength likely will raise back up to 31 mission-capable aircraft. These will be desperately needed for the group's next allocation in the most ambitious large-scale strategic raid straight through the heart of fortified Germany on a scale unlike anything previously attempted by the 8th Army Air Force. To close out with some family history, my grandfather was a master crew chief in the 305th Bombardment Group in England during 1942 at 105 Chelmsford RAF Station. So I plan on covering every bombardment operational mission for Masters of the Air, with part 3 coming up next. If you want to help support this type of content, subscribing and posting comments goes a long way for the AI algorithms. It seems to like it a lot, and it also likes the thumbs up thingy majiggy. Thanks for watching, and it's not over till it's over there.